All right. So, let's talk about pseudoscience. And let's talk about age reversal and all the different therapies. Give me 1 second to figure out some shit here, because we're going to be entering into a new world of innovation where you can't tell if someone's healthy or not until you find out later they died from a heart attack or a stroke. And that does come with indicators. And you're not going to know. So here's the thing. Age reversal. By allowing the gray hair to go back to its original color is not reversing the aging process. Just deception through phenotypical characteristics like plastic surgery or botox or taking a drug therapy. And so what is the barometer? What is the barometer of the aging process or the reversing of the aging process? Well, that's your telomeres. Are you going to ask every person on Facebook that you're following because they're giving you a health regimen or some health guru? Are you going to ask for their telomeric printout of their telomeres? Or are you going to base what they look like as far as credibility? You're going to base what they look like as far as being credible or not credible in their information. And with the innovation, with science, the pseudoscience, people call the diligence pseudoscience, but I'm going to tell you this, and I'll tell you what pseudoscience is. Pseudoscience is a collection of beliefs or practices mistakenly regarded as being based on the scientific method. Okay, who determines what is mistakenly regarded as being based on the scientific method? Let's look up the scientific method, just for shits and giggles. Hold on. Scientific method. Okay? Excuse me. Give me 1 second here. Come on. All right. Here we go. Cancel. Jesus Christ. Okay. What are the 6 steps of the scientific method? Ask a question, background research, hypothesis, experiment, analyze data and make conclusion, and then communicate. And so anyone that promotes a therapy, a remedy, or a drug, okay, or any type of thing that is trying to mitigate symptoms, are they going through the scientific method for themselves? Well, they have to trust what the person is giving them has gone through that process, but even then, you still haven't seen it for yourself. You don't know if that scientific method that you're going to do on yourself is going to be like the one that it's over there, the other person that is promoting this. And so the thing about telomeric lengthening and telomeric shortening, that is the barometer of someone aging and somebody who is reversing the aging process. And so when you're using therapies or using different types of genetic reversals in phenotypical characteristics, does not tell you the true actual health of the person. You're being fooled through the different therapies because a person looks like the perception that they're young. Whether it's the smooth skin because of the different therapies in the skin, the reversing of the graying process to now their original hair color, to whatever science wants you to think that someone looks like they're healthy, but you don't know because you don't have a telomeric printout of them actually lengthening their telomeres, not shortening the telomeres. And so just because you reverse someone's hair color or you made their skin look good, is it really strengthening their heart? No, it's not. Because when you actually reverse the aging process with your heart and your vital organs, it's painful. because you're already under so many predispositions. And so just because they changed the phenotypical characteristics, just because it took away the pain sensation or blocked intelligence, doesn't mean that you are reversing the aging process. You are just going under the perception that the aging process has been reversed or stopped. And that is the pseudoscience, because each person out there is going to take on those specific things without really knowing how it's going to affect them. It might give them a temporary stay of execution. And of course, every therapy out there has a thing that says, well, this is not 100%. These are the potential pitfalls if you do this, this, and this. And that's the loopholes in any kind of therapy. But the True Barometer is the telomeric lengthening, the telomeric shortening. And then what are we basing on? What are we basing the telomeric lengthening and shortening? Okay, well, you have a string of data sheets that you took the telomere test back in 1995, and then you took it again in 2000, took it again in 3000, and now you're seeing an increase in your telomeres? Because you know for a fact, when someone dies from a heart attack or stroke and all of that, there were indicators, there were major indicators that said this was going to lead up to that. And their body was atrophying inside. Just because they look cute on the outside, they're wearing all their makeup and filters and doing all the therapies, doesn't mean that they were strengthening their vital organs and feeling the pain of going through that evolution, taking on new information like the viruses and whatever. And so they die from a heart attack and stroke. Because you couldn't fool the vital organs. You can fool the outside image, and then people start buying all your therapies and buying all your MLMs because they're fooled by the looks of somebody. And so the Jillijuice world, we ask the questions. We go through the scientific method. No, it's not in a formalized lab, but we ask the question. We do background research. I give you all the PubMed, the NIH, all the different Shared Freedom of Information Act that's done by academia and the peer-reviewed by the different PhDs. We've developed a hypothesis that we can reverse the aging process, but you got to feel pain and you can't be taking therapies to block the intelligence, or else you become cured and then decline and lose intelligence over a period of time relative to the environment. We do experiments. We do it ourselves. We take the J juice. Some people will take a little bit and be like, I don't want to deal with the mucus. I don't want to deal with all the predispositions I ever had. And so they experiment on themselves, and it's relatively safe because it's just cabbage, water, and salt, and you got to eat food. But if it's too much for them, then they go back and get a cure from the medical holistic system. And so they've done the experiment on themselves. How many people who do not like Jilly Juice have never done the Jilly Juice ever in their lifetime? And they have something to say about it. And so they are practicing pseudoscience because they haven't even done the steps. They haven't asked the questions. They haven't done any background research. They've not done any experiments on themselves. And then, of course, if they don't do any experiments, and they don't analyze the data or make conclusions. I made the conclusion that once you deal with viruses, and then I see myself getting smarter after each time I get exposed to a virus, and I keep feeding my body all food in the food supply, there's my data. There's my analyzing data. There is my research. There's my conclusion. And then I fucking communicate. I make a video. And every single time I get these revelations, I make a video. And so you're seeing me going through the scientific method in my own home. Yes, I experiment on my dog, but I'm just giving her food. And she has to deal with these viruses. I'm not giving her any kind of anti-seizures or any anti-anything medication. She has to go through the process, or else what? Kill her with medication? No. And so I keep feeding her. I give her walks. I give, clean up after her after she goes pee and poo and everything outside. And, she rests. And so there you go. I've done the experiments without using antibiotics, without using anything to block her intelligence or block my intelligence. I just deal with the information that I get exposed to, biophysically, intellectually, and all of that. And so the pseudoscience world, accusing those to be in pseudoscience, are actually talking about themselves. Those that want to be like the saviors against the pseudoscience world are actually talking about themselves, because they don't ask the fucking questions. They just blindly follow someone who said they'd gone through the scientific method. But if you don't go through the scientific method, then how do you know someone else's data is going to work for you or even work to the way that you think. You don't know. You're trusting somebody else. And so unless you go through the scientific method yourself personally, then you can't call anyone else out there pseudoscience when you haven't even done the fucking the scientific method on your own. And so that's the conundrum, the paradox with the medical holistic community, is they claim that they've gone through the scientific method on control groups, but you were never part of that control group. Maybe there are people who are similar to your situation, but they're not exactly your situation, not exactly the experiences that you have, or the geographical location that you're in, and also your lifestyle and your belief system. And so the control groups that are being used to then give you the feelings that you're going to be protected or it's going to work for you is pseudo fucking science. Because you're believing somebody else's scientific method when you haven't even done it yourself. And then you do it yourself, you're not doing it you're not asking the questions, you're not doing background research, you're not really doing the experiments because you're just taking it. Oh, maybe you are doing an experiment, but you don't know it. Or if you know it, then okay. Are you going to analyze the data, make conclusions, or are you going to be like, oh no, now I'm protective? I don't understand why this happened, that happened. And so it's a very fine line when someone believes somebody else's scientific method. You have to really do your own research. And the conclusions and the questions you ask must be independent from those that are offering you the therapy, because the people offering you therapies are biased, completely biased, financially biased. And when they're saying they're trying to protect you from something, that should be a red flag. Okay? You also have to protect yourself. Because even what would be perceived as a minor reaction could be a major one for somebody else. But then you don't know their situation. You don't know if they were told against it or for it. And so then we all are working under these assumptions and these perceptions of what is true, right, and correct. And then we don't know what people are dealing with as far as telomerically. So when we look at someone who has black hair and nice skin and great makeup and whatever, and then they're selling you remedies, they're selling you therapies, you're going to make this correlation equals causation. Oh, they look young, they look healthy, and they're selling me a remedy and a therapy and an MLM and whatever. And since they look good, because they were put out there on the camera, they were the spokesperson for that specific product, you're going to think you're going to look like that. I've done that all the time when it comes to bathing suits. I bought a bathing suit from China that was made for someone extremely smaller than me, like way smaller than me, for a child basically. But it was a very revealing bathing suit. And I wanted to look like that person in the picture. And that's the marketing, is that we want to believe the words of the marketers. We want to look and believe what they look like is what we're going to look like or end up being like or whatever. And so then what it comes down to is telomeres. But then you can't see people's telomeres. And so then what do people do now? That's therein lies the problem. And so do I have an answer for that? Yeah, I do. You got to feel pain. You got to deal with the viruses. You got to gain the intelligence. And you got to keep feeding your body food and do the best you can to stay away from the therapies market. That's the only thing I can say. Completely the opposite of the medical holistic industry. Completely the opposite. Because there are people out there that are using these therapies to reverse their hair so their hair doesn't look gray, but it looks now, or they dye it, or they take away the wrinkles on their skin. They do all the different plastic surgery, nips and tucks and Botox. And then when someone passes away, they pass away from heart attack and stroke, but there were indicators, but you would never know this unless you knew their medical history. And so I wouldn't die from a heart attack or stroke because there's no indicators. I've already strengthened my heart. Because what would cause someone to die from a heart attack and stroke? Because they didn't have the release process that was almost the same, or if not better, than the retention process. Because when people are taking the different therapies that are giving them the memories to atrophy their release process and retention process, then they are being induced, the memories are being induced by the medical holistic system. But no, the agility juice says now you create new memories. You work your sphincter to cause that sphincter remember to release all that poop stuff that when you're exposed to some pretty crazy variants that's not being held inside, atrophied by your sphincter. And then you also build up your first lines, so that way when you do get exposed to something, you have some kind of lines of defense so it all doesn't get in. But if it does get in through your food and you're eating the food, then at least your gut will have you release it through your sphincter, and that's when you start releasing stuff. But when people are taking therapies to atrophy their retention and release process, then yeah, they're going to be dealing with some shit, literally. They're going to be telomerically declining because of the aging process from all those B cells and T cells working against them. And then they're going to go to the medical system to try to do a nip and a tuck, an injection here and a shot there and whatever. And yeah, that might give them a temporary state of execution, but they're not releasing at the level that they are retaining. And so people blow up. And though they might look young, I'm going to go, but you get it, right?